Hello everybody. Make a New Track has been out for a decent bit now, and you potentially could still be wondering, what the hell am I supposed to do in this scenario? This scenario is confusing. What should I do? Today I'm going to be giving you exactly what you could potentially be benefiting off and potentially make better aces. Right now I have made pretty much 2 SS in my first couple of runs in Make a New Track, and it's actually very simple. This Mihono Bourbon was my first ever Make a New Track Uma, and this Uguri Cap is just the first Uma that I finished with team trials. First things off, remembering your shop. Remembering the shop rotations is extremely important. It is very simple. It refreshes every January, April, July and October. If it is the first year, it is going to start at early July and then gets refreshed at early October. It is very important to remember these. Let's say I take the Nakayara Kinan for example. The issue is that, let's say I forgot when exactly does the shop refresh. I could potentially not buy anything and forget, oh, the next turn is when the shop is refreshed, but turns out the next turn is still the previous shop, so you will end up just losing potentially some items, provided that you gotten some items from racing. Racing can give you items which of course lasts for a shorter duration compared to the usual shop, so you potentially could waste a couple of items by not properly knowing when exactly does your shop refresh. Here is a very good example of this. As an example, let's say I have completely 0 coins, okay? I have 2 turns left in order to buy the empowered megaphone and 3 turns left to buy the ankles. Let's say I only have 1 of these megaphones. What I should be doing is pretty much very simple. I race for that turn, buy the megaphone, and then the turn after I buy the ankles, not the other way around, because if you bought the ankles first, you will not be able to buy the megaphones, which would mean that you are losing on a lot of stats. Next up, resting is fine in this scenario, but you need to look out for some things. When you are low on energy, you should firstly look at if you are at the 3rd consecutive race or not. If you are, I would not generally recommend doing it unless it's a G1 race. 2, it is a bad training. And 3, if it is still early on, check your wet training, because potentially there could be some very good wet training clicks to get your bonds with your cards, but you just click on resting immediately. So if you check your wet training and then check if you have the 3rd consecutive race and it's not a G1 race, then I would recommend you just rest, which of course is going to be helpful for you, because that is probably the best outcome that you could do for that turn. Okay, now for the racing versus training aspect. It is very interesting to know when exactly do you race and when exactly do you train. Generally, when you want to focus on your training over the racing, you want to ask yourself the question, when does the shop refresh? Okay, the shop refreshes, let's say in 6 turns, okay? How many races can I do within these 6 turns? Oh, for example, this example over here, I can race 4 times, so I potentially have 200 total coins if I do not race over here, but let's say the turn after I race instead. Now let's check the training. I have double rainbow speed click. Firstly, I check for the shop. If the shop does contain an item that is extremely good for me later on, but I cannot buy it unless I race, then I would race. If not, then I would check, oh, my schedule allows me to have a free turn over here, so I would instead race on this turn and the following turn and buy the items that I would want and use that turn for good training. Overall, this turn I could use the megaphone, and also the speed ankles, and enjoy myself an extra bit of speed early on, which of course is extremely helpful for the mile distance track, given that there is of course multiple annoying Umas that I will talk about later on that could be your rivals. One last thing regarding the races is that if you are below 20 energy, then always click the bottom option. The bottom option has a chance that you consume 10 energy instead of 20. If you are below 20 energy, then you just click on the bottom option and potentially save yourself like a couple extra energy that could be an extra training or two throughout the career. You never know the difference. On to the distance attributes. The distance attributes is going to be a very debateful section of this entire argument, but personally, on my opinion, mile C is not enough unless you are an instant acceleration Uma. For example, Saiyan Sky is a mile C Uma, but she is an instant acceleration Uma. I think mile C can work on Saiyan Sky because she is an instant 0.4 acceleration Uma. But for other Umas, let's say like Rice Shower, let's say Kita-san Black, I would just recommend just you going for at least mile B. On my opinion, even at mile B, sometimes it is so annoying that I would just straight up go to mile A. But it just depends on your Uba. If your Uba is extremely good, but her attribute is B, then that is fine. If your Uma is on the weaker side of uniques and she has mile B, I would just recommend you increasing it to mile A. The reason is very simple. There is very annoying Umas on mile distance track, and these are an example. Nishiano Flower and Tenki Shuttle are acceleration demons. They will probably out accelerate you in those tracks. So I would just recommend to increase your attributes in order to not to lose so much to them and burning your clocks. And of course, there is two Umas, being Seeking the Peril and also Varika, who are triumphant pulse level of BS. So what I would recommend again is to increase both of your speed, both of your power, and also your mile attribute to be at least B. But if you are running it on B, then I would recommend that if you lose multiple times in a row, like 3 times against a specific race, then I would just recommend taking the loss and just move on. It is very annoying, and I would recommend most people to just go with mile A, since we are still early on in Mekaru track scenario or track blazer. Mihano Bourbon is fine as an option because mile B is fine for an Uma that has a very strong unique skill. Operation Cacao can proc in the middle of the game, and of course gives her a very good duration of a target speed increase, which helps her try to stay in the lead throughout that entire mile race. Saiyan Sky, if you put her at mile B, she is pretty much an instant win every single time because her 0.4 instant acceleration. It is very strong, and I would recommend that you should put at least one spark for any Uma that is mile C innately. Kita-san Black is an example. Kita-san Black's unique is a 0.25 target speed increase, since we are using her on a mile distance track and we do not have the opposite straight condition. So her unique will activate somewhere in this area, which is decent, but the target speed is so little that you will probably be out accelerated by Taki Shuttle and Nishiano Flower. So I would just recommend increasing that attribute to at least B. And to go about this is that you can buy skills if you are not sure if you can win or not. For example, over here, let's say you are not sure that you can win the Japan Derby. What you can do is basically buy cheap skills that will increase your overall amount of chances to win that race. Winning G1 races is extremely important, and of course that is going to be something that you want to focus on. The triangle danger icon is going to be races that take place before both inspiration events. The reason why I want to talk about this point is that let's say you have a level 1 corner recovery hand, okay? And you are careful or like extremely worried about Tionosho Spring. So you buy corner recovery. Okay, the problem is that you could later on get corner recovery from your inspiration event, but since you already have it, you do not get anything off of it. So that is something to keep in mind. So buy recovery skills that you do not generally have on your inspiration or parents overall. So what I would recommend is you buy skills that you do not really have on your parents that still function very similarly. Something like Maxi can work if you are a frontrunner player, something like Prefer the Possession if you're a Pace Chaser. It just depends on your strategy that you are using for that race. If your Uma is Miles C and she has a bad unique, I would genuinely recommend just go to pre-OP leagues. I know it is not as ideal, but if you really truly care about the shop and you just want to soak up the initial loss for having a Miles C at the beginning, then it is much better than just running it against Taiki Shuttle or Nishiano Flower in the rival race that you will get in Mile. Next up is proning your skills. What does this mean? So here is an example. We have a rival race, but I check my skills and I have, let's say, level 4 hint for fast pace as a frontrunner player. What I could do is essentially just buy fast pace. So now I have gotten fast pace, but in the same time that means that I eliminate one skill that I could get from that rival race, which increases the chances for me to get Leader's Pride if I want to get that skill also in my skill set. So what I would recommend is that let's say you have a skill that you already plan on buying in the Champions meeting. So what I would recommend, if you see it at level 4 hint and you do not think that you can get a fast learner on this run, then I would just recommend buying that skill to increase the chances for you to get other skills that could be slightly harder for you to get. For example, the Long Champions meeting, we have two really good skills, being Feature Act and Inside Scope, but Feature Act is more so for frontrunners and pace chasers. Let's say I have a long rival race. I get Inside Scope. If I do not have Inside Scope on my parents, what I would recommend is just buy Inside Scope to make Feature Act more easier for you to obtain, so that you get both of them. Sometimes you will have way too much skill points on your run, so something like this is going to be a good way for you to use these extra skill points while also having very strong skill lineup. Next up is the hammers. The hammers are very important because they are actually a multiplicative buff instead of additive. What they do is very simple. They add an extra multiplier on your total race bonus, which of course is extremely strong. So the only and true way to use these hammers is on G1 races and the finals. You want to save 3 of the golden hammers for the finals, and anything after that, instantly use it on G1 races. Do not ever use it on a G2 race or a G3 race. You are losing on a lot of value, and there is a lot of G1 races that you can do instead. So please do not use them on G2 races or G3 races. As for the summer, it's very simple. As you have enough energy for the entire 4 turns of summer, having 2 or 3 of the desired ankles, being speed and also guts, those 2 are the most 2 common ones. However, the power one can be used if you are using a power cards on your deck. And of course you want as much as a lucky charms and also whistles as you can possibly have. And for the empowered megaphone, I would just recommend, ideally if you have 2, use both of them. If not, you could go for 1 of the empowered megaphone and 1 for motivating megaphone. So overall, once you are like starting your second year, you want to aim for these items in order for you to get a very good summer overall, provided that you do not get shafted with RNG. Umamusume is still an RNG game after all. Next up is racing specific races. Here is an example that I use for my triple tiara route. It's either two routes. It's either you go triple tiara or you can just go with the classical triple crown. However, there is Kikasho, and Kikasho can be annoying on some Umas. So what I would recommend for you to start off with is simply just going with the triple tiara. It is much easier overall, and you can win a lot more races from the triple tiara compared to the triple crown. The first reason is very simple. The hidden stat Epithets are extremely good for this scenario. You get a lot of extra stats throughout the career. It is about like 250 to 300-ish random stats that you can get throughout the career, and that is extremely good amount overall, especially if it lands on stats that you would want, especially for the next Champions Meeting, being Champions Meeting 11 Pesca's Cup. You want it to land on speed, stamina, power, and wit. So that is already about 4 of the 5 stats that you want has extra. It is very important, and it is very easy to just put on a schedule and just follow the races that you planned overall, and of course you will get a lot of extra stats. The next one is actually very simple, and that is going to be the affinity. The affinity is actually very easy, because what you can do is you race this very specific races every single time, and once you start to realize how to make the most off of your shop, off of your turns, etc, you will start making parents and also aces at the same time. While it's not going to be perfect every single time, the affinity, the common affinity overall will be much higher. So you will eventually make decent parents, and these parents will have much higher likelihood to give you their skills from their inspiration event, because their affinity is overall higher. So affinity is also something important that you should keep in mind. And that is pretty much it. This is my first OG recap that I have made for team trials. I'm trying to revamp my team trials overall so that I could stay at class 6, but it is very easy to learn this scenario. Once you learn this scenario, it just comes down to when is the optimal time to use this item. Oh, should I erase this turn? Let me just understand exactly what should I do. So that is pretty much it. It is a very easy scenario. It is very fun scenario too, especially once you get a very good clicks. It feels very awesome and rewarding. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you found this video to be helpful, consider subscribing and consider joining the community server linked in the comment section, and I hope to see you in the next one.